This is just the beginning, boys. This is just the fucking beginning. We got 3 more of these next week at home, at our place, against whoever the wants to come in here. Let's go. Win on 3, 1, 2, 3, win!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a joyful Daily Detroit for Monday, January 15th, 2024. Detroit is in celebration. I am Jer Stays. Joining me on the line is Fletcher Sharp. And Fletcher, we were not going to work today. Today is a holiday. I want to acknowledge that. But also, today is the day after, a day that will live in Detroit history. Whether you are a football fan or not, I am still riding high on this energy from the Lions beating the Rams last night. Jared Goff putting Matt Stafford, I think, in some ways in his place as far as being able to get a little bit of revenge, even though he said it was about the team. I got so many places I could start, but Fletcher Sharp, I'm giddy. Like this, I'm tingling. There are people that I know that I'm getting messages from. They were not alive since the last time something like this happened.
I was alive the last time the Lions were in the playoffs, and just barely. So that lets you know how long ago the last time they had a home playoff game and something like that was. So yeah, for them to go out, have this game, have all of the publicity, all of the hubbub, have everyone here to watch, and then not give the game away or not get blown out after all, that's great. The last time they were in the playoffs, it was an away game against the Saints. They got throttled, and near the end, they melted down, and people were like, of course, the Lions built us up to do this, and now they're out. And I'm sure there are some people who are worried, we have all the eyes on us watching this game. There's so many important things. Our passing defense has been terrible with players like Nate Mullins coming and picking us apart, so maybe Stafford might do that. What's going to happen if our run game falls up? And yes, the passing thing did happen. The run game picked up. The first quarter was I was driving home and listening, and when I actually got a chance to sit down and rewatch part of the first quarter, I was stunned because I had Aaron Donald for the Rams. You've heard it many times last night. Hall of Fame when he's done. Every year he's been in the NFL, he has been an All-Pro or a Pro Bowl player. Every year. So that lets you know how good he is. I've never seen an Aaron Donald defensive line get pushed around for a drive, let alone a full quarter, where they're just yeah, we're going to run the ball down your throat. That's it. This is your strength, and that's fine, but we're just going to move you out of the way because no thank you. That let me know how serious the Lions were about this game. There was no playing around. Ben Johnson did not call up any cute plays where it's ooh, what is it, 3rd and 3? Let's do a triple fake handoff and then, a behind the back. No, he called very much meat and potato plays. We're putting the ball down. We're hitting you as hard as we can and moving you out of the way. And that was the most stunning thing for me to start. And then for them to continue to keep the pressure on and play. Obviously, they had some moments where they kind of made a few mistakes, didn't really get all the execution they needed, had to give the ball back, and the Rams came down and scored. But I think the biggest indication of how well Goff played, no turnovers. He had that weird fumble pass in the first half that people were like, yo, man, don't do that ever again. No turnovers, no lost fumbles, no interceptions. He played composed. What was it, 5 or 6 incompletions total? He played a composed, compact game, and yeah, some people might say that's more of a game manager, but he managed his team to a victory, so that's really all that matters in the end.
Look, I know you love X's and O's, and I know throughout this season you have had your skepticism, but I have to ask you, how do you feel? Because this has got to be different for you, because I know you're among the most skeptical. I have asked you all year, will you drink the blue Kool-Aid? And you're like, no, and you're very protective of your heart, Fletcher Sharp. How do you feel today?
I mean, I picked them to win, and I'm still kind of in shock. Not even for the victory, but just how the victory came about. Everyone who's been a Lions fan has seen Matthew Stafford have the ball late, and it's all right, we know what's about to happen next. He's going to come down, he's going to get his team in position to score, and they're going to win, especially when the Lions finally started peaking near the end. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to really get them anything else, but Matthew Stafford had a history with the Lions and even with the Rams to a degree of getting the ball late, coming down, and getting a victory. And this time they didn't, even though there was a very, very obvious pass interference call that, might have gotten missed. It was called an incomplete pass. So they came down and they held someone who's notorious for doing that same thing at Ford Field, and the Rams still had a chance to get the ball back. And Goff dropped back, hit Amon-Ra St. Brown in the perfect spot, got the first down, and I double-checked to see how many timeouts that the Rams had, and they had none. I'm like, they have no timeouts left, 1:40 left in the game, and I saw them come out in victory formation, and I'm like, I don't believe this. I don't believe I'm watching them get in victory formation in a playoff game. I didn't think that would ever happen in my lifetime. So to see that, I'm still in shock. Like it's like I texted my father at like midnight, and he was like, "I know," and I'm like, "This is wild." Like Lions victory formation alone is wild, just because they've been on the other side for so long. But to see it in a playoff game, knowing they don't have to ever run the ball or pass the ball the rest of the game, they can just kneel down and wait. Like that's the most. It's so demoralizing to be on the other side of that. So to watch a team that like you have feelings for, or watch a team that's your hometown team do that, it's like, slowly submerging in a warm bath. You know what I mean?
And against a team that's good. There's no doubt that the Rams are a good football team. I have to say that I think I'm going to declare, although, look, anything can happen in these future playoff games. We're going to have an episode about this that's going to air later this week, because we're recording this before the playoff game. We don't know who we're going to be facing next week. But I think this is the mark of a great season. And I'm going to say it, same old Lions are not the same old Lions. The same old Lions, that's dead to me.
Give them one more year. I'm not saying it has to be the same year, the same type of season as this season. They don't need to go out and win 12, 13, 14 games, although it would help. But give him one more year of making the playoffs, finishing high in the division, and then I'll definitely say that. Because we have seen teams have one great year, get a bunch of like attaboys and pats on the back, and then the following year come out and just lay an absolute stinker. So like I'll say that it's on its way to not being a thing anymore, but let's see if they can hold this consistency up. And given the way that, they've done from Dan Campbell's first season, 3 wins to now the 3rd seed, it's probably trending that way, but I want to hold off on that just to be sure, because you don't want to say same old Lions is dead and then next year they win 3 games or 2 games.
But see, here's the thing. I think that the players that Brad Holmes has brought in, you got a lot of young players that, hopefully cross our fingers. Sam Laporte is here a while. You've got some other signings that were made. The foundations of, look, I know that it's not going to be like perfect every season. I know, looking at Green Bay and their win over the Dallas Cowboys, we know they're going to be a more formidable force next year. I know it's going to be challenging, but like that feeling, like seeing Brad Holmes, I don't know if you saw the clip of Brad Holmes in the elevator.
In the elevator, yes. And that's one thing I do appreciate about him is you want, like, people want owners to like be owners but also care. But I'm okay with an owner like letting his emotions get the best. Like when they drafted the players, when they got Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta in the first round, he was about to break that table in celebration. He was so ecstatic. He wanted everyone to know. And I get it. I mean, you're helping to build this team, and like literally every decision you make goes into making sure this team is as best as it can be. So to get this playoff win, not only just for himself, but for this team and this city, again, you mentioned skeptical. I just want to make sure that it's actually gone. Just like, as you get older, there are monsters under your bed. You're like, well, maybe they're gone. Let's just be safe. Let's just keep the door cracked a little bit. Let's just keep the door cracked a little bit for one more year. Make sure those monsters are gone. And then we can shut the door entirely and sleep with the lights off.
Speaking of homes and owners, I do not want to get into this too much at all because this is a Lions-focused episode and I want to keep the vibes pretty good. But that's part of the reason why the fans are so damn mad at Tom Gores right now. with the Pistons. That energy, what you're talking about, is part of why so many fans are frankly just fed up and upset with Tom Gores right now, because it's that like, oh, I'm going to do a thing on ESPN or whatever, but there isn't that same kind of thing. Whereas like Dan Campbell came out, and Dan Campbell showed us that, you know what, win or not, he's going with this ship. He is going to be somebody who is going to, you know, try to turn this team around. And frankly, he did it. And frankly, Dan Campbell, you can criticize some of his calls, but it works, man. Dan Campbell's brand of football works.
I mean, I appreciate someone who, even if they are 100% wrong, will stick to their convictions, and like they'll apologize for it later. I can appreciate that. I might not like it all the time. I might not like it most of the time. There might be some moments where I'm like, yo, that's really stupid, or yo, that's really whatever. But the fact you're like, I am not changing. I am doing this thing. If it does not work out, I will apologize. But if it does work out, we're doing it again. It's gotten to the point, especially with Lions fans, and for this as an example, it's like, oh, what is it? 3rd and 6? Like, yeah. Where are they? The 45? Yeah, this is 2-play territory. Like, they pulled up the stats. Since he took over as a head coach, they've gone for it on 4th down like 120 times. That's insane. Like, that's like Madden numbers, where it's like, yeah, we don't punt here. That's youth league, inner city Detroit football, where they don't really have punters, where it's like we go for it every single time because we don't have anyone who can kick. And the difference is with the Lions, they have a weapon at punter, but they're just like, we want to keep the pressure on. What is it? What can we do to make you feel under pressure? And sometimes when you put people under pressure like that, they make mistakes. The lights get a little bit too bright. And by going for it consistently, it keeps the defense on their toes, because they're like, are they gonna try to get the snap? Are they gonna try to actually run a play? What's gonna happen here? And while they're thinking, you're scheming what you're gonna do next. And it does not work all the time. They're not 100% going for it. I think they're like 56 out of like 100 and something. But like, that's the most by far out of any team in that area of time.
I think we're going to see a change in the league. I think other teams are going to look at that, and there's some other teams, not everyone, but I think some other teams are going to start to pick that up, because look, if more than half the time you can keep the ball and you're in a position like, as long as you're not doing this on the 20 or on your own 20, if you can keep the ball and you have a more than 50% chance of keeping the ball, you're going to do it. I think we're going to see a fundamental shift in football.
Not every, especially on teams that don't really have the best special teams. I don't want to say it's refreshing, but like it's a very different energy, even from before. Like when I said early in the year, when people are like, they might win the division, and I'm like, I don't know about that. I believe that, but also I was like, you know what? This might be the team that might prove me wrong. Like, there's a different energy coming out of the locker room. Everyone has bought into what Dan Campbell has put on the table.
Has your hesitance clouded your predictions? Because you're right on a lot of things, but with the Lions, it's been a tough one.
Yeah, I understand that, but I typically tend to err on the side of learned experience, what I've experienced just as a fan or as somebody, and I'd rather be safe than sorry with stuff like that. Perfect example, that Jim Caldwell in 2014, went 11-5, got into the playoffs as a wild card, lost to the Cowboys. Following year, they went 7-9, didn't make the playoffs. Next year, 9-7. People are like, this is an upswing. They went 9-7 again, and then he got fired. So, like, yeah, I've seen them have a span of time where they were pretty good, not the best, but pretty good. And right after they got rid of Jim Caldwell, Matt Patricia came in, and that team fell off a cliff. So, like, yeah, I want to make sure that it's sustained before I'm like, yeah, because after Jim Caldwell came in and revitalized the team and had them humming around the ball, I was like, yes, the Lions are back. And then the Lions proceeded to kind of be back, kind of not be back. And then they were definitely not back for some time until this current regime took over. So I just want to, for me, I'm always going to make sure that, like, is there enough to sustain this? There is. Cool. Let's go to it. But until then, like, let's wait. Let's wait a second. And yes, while everyone is very excited about the Lions now, I'm excited about the Lions now. I think they're doing great things, and you can tell because people are like happy to talk about football, which has not been the case for some time. You realize how many people in the city are Lions fans when, like, even the old lady in the store is like, I watched the game and such and such and such, and they were running the ball. Like, that's when you know, like, oh wow, everyone really cares about this.
I went to the grocery store and it was full of Lions jerseys and Lions shirts and Lions hats. Like, everything's Lions.
Like, I got gas, and the guy's like, are you watching the game? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I got it on the TV if you want. I'm like, thanks, man. I got to get home so I can watch it at home. And he's like, yeah, it's nut. And I'm like, yeah, people, it's insane how much people really, 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 care. But because people really, really care, and at one point I cared a lot, I want to make sure, like, this is sustainable. Even if they, go 9-7 next year, or 9-8, or fine. That means it's sustainable enough to where they're still over 500. I can buy into that. I'm good. I can do that. So I would rather just make sure it's good before I hop in with 2 feet, because you don't want to hop in with 2 feet and then the floor gives out because you're falling.
You're always looking for different things than other people are looking at when you're watching the game. Between your experience and, covering sports for a long time, why don't you share with us a couple of things that you noticed that maybe other people didn't, that were key plays?
Everyone's talking about Bagley's field goal, which is very important. Number one, because it made sure that the Lions led for the entire game. That's something people I don't think really realize as much. From the first drive to the last drive, the Lions were ahead. I never thought they'd have a wire-to-wire home victory in period, let alone a playoff game. But they were ahead from 7-0 until 24-23. Like, that's insane. The field goal was important because kicks over 50 yards, he was under 50%, which is bad. I mean, a 50-yard kick is a hard kick to make, but being under 50% would mean that maybe you don't try for that one. But Dan Campbell had faith, and he nailed it. To me, my biggest play of the game, something people probably weren't paying that much attention to. The Lions' second to last drive, they were forced to punt after a 3-and-out from their 31-yard line. And Jack Fox hit a booming punt that took the ball from the Lions' 31-yard line to the Rams' 9-yard line. And that flipped the field. And if he had just a regular punt, Rams get the ball at like 20, 25, 30-yard line maybe they have a chance to come down and kick a field goal. But the fact that he kicked the ball to the 9-yard line, the team got down there to field it, meant they had to go at least 60, 65 yards to get maybe a good field goal, 91 yards entirely to get a touchdown. And it puts more pressure on you because you only have one timeout now. So now you're trying to get things going quickly. And another big play for me is even a play that came from the Lions. As people know, I'm very harsh at times about fanship. The Rams had to burn 2 timeouts because they couldn't hear, because Ford Field was that loud. That helped the team by just not allowing them to communicate. And like that's a huge thing, because if they had some more timeouts and going 91 yards late in the game, might not matter as much because you can stop the clock. But without those timeouts and having to just kind of caveman it and just go with what you have, it helped the defense, which allowed them to be a bit more, aggressive, especially after they kind of got torn apart by another receiver. It helped. It helped a lot. So yeah, my 3 biggest moments were not touchdowns or anything like that. It was more a long field goal, a tremendous punt from someone who's very underappreciated, and the fans making it so loud that they had to burn timeouts to make sure they got the right play call in.
One thing I loved is that Laporta was out there, but other players contributed. Coming into this thing, there was a lot of worry because Laporta was responsible for a huge number of the first downs for the team, and Laporta was out there, and for sure he contributed. But we saw what a distributed offense can do, and Laporta being out there meant everybody had to think about him. But then they played it a little different and opened up the options and hit a lot of people. And yes, he was important, but it was more than him, and it turned out to work out far better in the Lions' favor.
Well, I mean, yeah, he caught a touchdown pass. That definitely mattered because they won by 1. But like I said in our pre-episode, him playing helps, but like he won't be the reason they win or lose. And obviously the touchdown matters, but like decent chance in that position, Goff finds someone else for a touchdown in that situation. So I'm not trying to take that away and say like, oh, it doesn't matter, because it does. Without that touchdown, they lose by 6. Goff completed 22 passes. Laporta only had 3 receptions. That means 19 passes went to other people. Amon-Ra Brown had 7. Josh Reynolds, who stepped up big, had 5. Jahmyr Gibbs had 4. Jamison Williams had 2. One very big early one to kind of get the team going. And David Montgomery had one great clutch catch late for 11 yards where he made someone miss and got a first down. Very needed first down. So yeah, Laporta had his 1 touchdown, but it was only for 14 yards. 14 yards receiving. He was not the straw that broke the camel's back. Someone else could have stepped up there, and Josh Reynolds did so in a big way, especially when they were kind of hurting in the receiver core. It wasn't necessarily, big gains, but it was the fact that they kept the other team on their toes. It's like, all right, we have to actually pay attention to the run game, because if we don't, they could gash us. It's both running backs went for 11-yard runs, which lets you know like one more missed tackle and they're probably running down the sideline. So yeah, Laporta being back was great. I know he was kind of ginger. Probably might have maybe made a few more plays had he not been coming off of a potential bad injury. But like, yeah, he kind of like you said, I don't say he's a figurehead, but he was out there, but he wasn't like going to be the main focus. If he was open, then they would hit him. But if not, then, someone else will step up.
But before we get into this preview, which we're going to do later this week, what are you thinking about specifically? What do you think the buzz is going to be around going into, next week as we stand now, not knowing our opponent yet?
Well, I know it's a home game, so the energy that happened this weekend will be happening next weekend. One thing I do want to focus on a little bit is Kirby Joseph. He had a hit last night against the Rams on Tyler Higbee, where he came in low to try to dislodge the ball. And it's really bad form on the Peacock crew to show that replay again, because no one needed to see that. His knee bent in a way that was unnatural, and I'll just leave it there. Most likely he tore an ACL and an MCL. And a lot of fans who were not Lions fans, a lot of them maybe were Vikings fans, who were like, wow, he's a dirty player. He did that to TJ Hawkinson. Look, I'm not going to say that the hit was not brutal, but it's a necessary hit, unfortunately. And I know people hate hearing that. Football's a brutal sport. Like, it's, as someone who played in high school, I know some people played in high school as well, but I played in high school with a lot of future and now former NFL players. We were taught, if you're smaller, bigger guys coming, you got to hit them low. So if Kirby Joseph goes high on Tyler Higbee, who's 6'6", 255 at his heaviest, Kirby Joseph being 195, 200, he goes high and hits him in the head. It's a flag for targeting unnecessary roughness, as it should be. Head-to-head hits on defenseless receivers should be taken out. If he goes at his midsection, again, I mentioned the weight, 2 people running at the full speed, Kirby Joseph is probably taking the worst of that hit, and Tyler Higbee's probably still running for whatever. So he goes low to make sure that he can take someone down. I don't think he meant to hit him in the knee. I think he meant to hit him more in the thigh area, the fleshy part, to really cause it some shock. Unfortunately, he got him a little bit lower, and his knee bent. Same with TJ Hawkinson. I don't think he meant to take him out at the knee and injure people like that, but it happened. And it's unfortunate that it happened, because you never want to see knee injuries like that. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh yeah, he got hurt. Good. No, that's bad. And hopefully Tyler Higbee rests up as quickly as he can, because again, knee injuries, especially heading into the offseason like that, are not fun. But I'm going to keep an eye, me personally, on how Joseph is refereed in the next game, because after the first hit on Hawkinson, there was a little bit of some noise. After this one, there's a lot more buzz. People were on social media accounts flagging the NFL officials, being like, what's wrong with this hit? Why is this hit legal? Throw this thug out of it. Which, come on, I know what you're trying to say. Stop it.
I do want to say that Alex Anzalone went on social media and said directly, it's how the league office asks us to tackle. and that he said that his point is that it's a legal hit. This is a dangerous, violent sport. It's also legal to cut block defensive ends full speed while he's blinded on run plays. The QB should know not to throw the ball and protect his own player. And like I said, I do not want anyone to get hurt out there. CJ Gardner-Johnson echoed that same feeling.
Same point I was going to get to. CJ Gardner-Johnson quoted Tom Brady and said, yeah, if you don't want him to get hit like that, don't put the ball where my safety can make a play. And that's literally, it's what we call it in football. I mean, sure, some people might know the lingo. It's called a hospital ball. It's where you throw a ball leading your player into an oncoming hit where they don't see it coming. And as a quarterback, if you can help it, don't do that. And I'll say this, as someone who's watched Matthew Stafford for most of his career, he had some amazing arm strength and some amazing throws, but he had a penchant for leading his players into hospital ball type throws. Like, there are plenty of times Calvin Johnson would go for a ball, extend fully, and then get laid out by an oncoming safety. And the reason why, like, we kind of look the other way is because it was Matthew Stafford. He's our guy. But, like, he had a penchant for leading his players into hits they really did not need to take. And, like, Matthew Stafford throws a ball, kind of leading Tyler Higbee in a situation where he probably could have hit him a bit more in his chest. And Kirby Joseph had a business decision to make. He's like, am I going to let this guy catch this ball, get a first down, and keep this drive going? Or am I going to try to dislodge this ball and not get run over? And he made the second choice. And unfortunately, it resulted in an injury. And then someone on social media made this point, well, watching the Chiefs game, I watched Patrick Mahomes get hit under his knees. Why was that a flag and not whatever? Because as NFL rules state, hitting stationary players below the knee is a flag. So really mainly quarterbacks. It's to protect quarterbacks. And it really happened after Tom Brady got hit in 2008, tore his whole knee up, and they're like, we have to go a season without Tom Brady. Oh, no, we're changing the rules there. So what am I going to say? Is it totally fair? Not necessarily, but it's literally the rule. If the situation had happened, Sam Laporta got hurt the same way last week. He got hit low, and his knee bent funny. Were people clamoring that it was a dirty hit? No, they're like, dang, that stinks. His leg should have gave way in the turf, and it did not. We hope he's okay. No one's out here trying to call for the player who hit Sam Laporta to like be thrown out of the league for being an unruly thug. That's the nature of the sport. We're literally watching American Gladiators. Very big men hit each other as hard as possible. Like, that's what football is. But, like, there's really nothing he could have done except let him catch that ball and get a first down and continue going. And it stinks. It really does. I don't want to go over the fact that someone is hurt, potentially irreparably damaged for some part of their career. But, like, it's a brutal sport. And I don't really know what he could have done differently except, let him catch the ball and then get chewed out for not making a play.
Fletcher Sharp, I know we're going to catch up real soon because there's a lot more to talk about. And tonight is the playoff game between the Eagles and the Buccaneers. One of the two are going to be coming to Ford Field on Saturday at 2 p.m. So it's going to be crazy again in downtown Detroit, despite the frigid temperatures. Fletcher Sharp, so good to talk to you. We'll talk soon, man.
For sure, definitely. And I really hope it's the Buccaneers, as the Lions have already beaten them.
All right, with that, I am Jer Stays. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to tell a friend about your daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. 5 stars on your favorite podcast app. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.